Hey Cat said, midsole Bud here. Lots of viewers really enjoyed my recent videos ranking the Adidas and Nike running shoes that I've tested out over the last year. More people have reached out and said that they want me to do the same, but for some of the other brands that I've tested out. So here I go, I aim to please always. Today we're ranking the rest of the running shoes I've tested out from Puma and Asics. Let there be upper, midsole and outsole. Thanks for tuning in, valued viewers and footwear friends. If you're enjoying the content here on the channel, please help us out by hitting the subscribe button. You know it makes sense. Also click the bell for notifications so you're notified. If you hit that like or thumbs up button, it does wonders for the channel too. How about sharing the video with your running buddies? And you can also support the channel on a more ad hoc basis by giving us a super thanks just down below. Dankeschön. Today we're delving into the releases from two big manufacturers, Puma and Asics. There's a mountain of shoes that I've reviewed over the last year, but certainly these two brands make up for quite a number of those. We will start off with everybody's favourite Japanese brand, Asics, a sound mind in a sound body. Kicking off with the GEL-Nimbus 24. This is a shoe fired over to me by Asics for review a little earlier this year. I really enjoyed the Flight Foam Blast Plus here in the midsole, along with a combo of the classic Asics gel. There was a little bit just under the midfoot as well, and you could certainly feel it. So a more conventional stack here, though with lots and lots of cushion. Kind of like moving into the future from a previous Asics shoe, but still with some of that stability. I found the shoe to be a good smooth operator. Ideal for longer, slower runs and some easy daily stuff. The gel unfortunately does add a little bit of weight to the Nimbus 24, but it is the thing that kind of separates out this shoe from all of the others that have been recently released. It's still got a bit of the Nimbus heritage there. I did feel that this one ran more true to size. Some Asics models recently have felt rather long. They seem to be coming to a more true to size situation though here in the Nimbus 24. Definitely the Novablast model is a little bit longer. I would suggest you could probably afford to go down a half size there, not here. Certainly an interesting implementation of Flight Foam Blast Plus here in the midsole, and if you need a little hint of stability from the pieces of tech here on the medial side of the shoe, then this is the way to go. Perhaps a good training and perhaps even racing option, I suppose, if you're going to run a half or full marathon. For me though, a touch on the weighty side still. I'm going to give it a solid C. Nothing really to sneeze at there. Moving on to the Asics Novablast 3 now. Apparently the same midsole material here, but it does feel rather different in terms of its application in this shoe. I tested this out a couple of months back and certainly enjoyed the ride. In fact, I enjoyed it more than the last two iterations of the shoe. It's just a little bit more versatile now. It still retains a nice plush feeling around the heel section, though I think with the slightly lower weight of this iteration, it's getting better every time. It does take a little bit of time to get that tongue flush on top of the foot when you're actually lacing up the shoe, and I'm not absolutely dead set on these sort of more elasticated flat laces here. Certainly very different to the original version of the Novablast. I've tried all three versions out now. The original was just a little bit too compressive and bouncy for my liking to use it for some sort of daily activities. This here feels a touch firmer now and a little bit more responsive. Perhaps could push it into territories that the Novablast hadn't been into before, at least for me. I've never found this model to be especially good for longer runs. I know some people have. For me it was just a little bit too unstable in the heel, probably due to the amount of foam that's been cut out of that area of the shoe. Over time this one's settled down nicely and I'm certainly enjoying it for sort of easy or pace efforts. Feels like a careful iteration of the model and I think it will keep going. I can't see them stopping this one now. It's a fan favourite. I think the only downside of the shoe that I found really is that very slippery outsole in wet conditions. If you're in the dry though, you need not worry. I'm going to give this a very promising B- for the Asics Novablast 3. I just hope they come up with a slightly coarser outsole pattern in future iterations. Moving on, people, to the Cumulus 24. The instant I got this on foot, it did feel like a distant sort of relative, I suppose, to the Novablast, but of course you do have some stabilizing gel elements there in the shoe. Asics do suggest this shoe is a neutral model. I'd suggest that if you do need a little stability there, it is here in the Cumulus. It does feel like it's guiding you just that little bit more. I think you got something actually smack bang in the middle here between the Nimbus 24 and the Novablast 3. This slightly squashier Flight foam blast material here. It isn't quite as responsive, I suppose, as the Plus variant. Certainly closer to the Nimbus 24 in terms of the underfoot feel. You don't have that big cutout there in the heel like you do on the Novablast. A daily rocker once again, and a quite plush feel. Asics are doing that in all of their shoes at the moment, certainly around the Achilles here. Does feel like a bit of a training partner, I suppose, to the Nimbus 24 if you're going to use that as your race shoe. The outsole hits the spot, almost always does on Asics shoes. If you know it's got AHA rubber, then you're good to go. Wouldn't say there's anything particularly standout about this shoe, positively or negatively, and there's some significant discounts at the moment, certainly around Black Friday, on a whole multitude of colourways. A steady C for the Cumulus. It does feel a bit like Asics' attempt at a Pegasus-like shoe. The last couple of shoes I tested out from Asics this year are the Metaspeed Sky series. I tested out the original Metaspeed Sky and the Metaspeed Sky Plus here. Certainly one of my favourites of the whole year. I do feel the Sky Plus does have a slight edge over the original, in all honesty. That extra midfoot width here and additional foam in the Sky Plus really does work for the old bones of Eddbud. The extra midfoot width and the stack here in the heel, along with a honed upper in the Metaspeed Sky Plus, really does give it the edge. See what I did there? I'm happy to give this one an A. There's only one thing that I would improve in it, and that is extending the rubber back just a little further into the heel to give it a bit of additional durability. And perhaps it's one that I feel I don't want to just use all the time, just sparingly for some of those higher pace workouts and racing. It's certainly a shoe where I need to feel up for it to get the best out of it, I suppose. It can be sometimes quite difficult to feel up for it when you're racing around Penmill Trading Estate at night. I think a few other super shoes feel a little bit like you could use them for practically anything, really. Some things feel a little better if you've got some recovery sections within a run. This one doesn't feel like that. It wants you to run at blistering pace pretty much the whole time. I think Asics are really pushing the boundaries with the use of their Flight Foam Turbo. It really is quite its own foam. Nothing's really that like it. It's super light and certainly very responsive as well. You can really feel some of that energy there. It's like you've put a whole pack of Duracell batteries underneath your foot. I've also found the aggressive traction fantastic in pretty much any weather conditions. It really is something else. I love it. And of course those wet conditions are very common in my region of the world. I think the original Metaspeed Sky is still a very good option as well if you can pick it up on a discount. I'll give the original a strong B grade. I think this one's just got the edge over it. We're going to move on to Puma now. First up, the Velocity Nitro 2. A very strong daily option from Puma here. I feel they've really improved it over the first version I reviewed the previous year. Some people reckon this shoe runs a touch long and that you could go down a half size. I've got to disagree, to be honest. The way the shoe curves in the toe box, I feel that if you do that, you're really going to be crunching up those toes. So I'd stick true to size if I were you. It's kind of like a triangular style setup here, and I think you need that extra room. A strong traction, just like a cat's paw on the outsole here. Got a breathable, meshy-like substance around your foot, and of course 2 slices of different Puma foam. You've got Nitro on top, and then an EVA blend underneath to add a little bit of extra durability. Kind of helps to stabilise the shoe somewhat as well, and the ride. You've got that slightly more dense EVA, which just creates a bit of a impact protector, I suppose. I do laugh at some reviews that I've seen where people have chastised this shoe for being easy to tear apart. Who attacks these things with such tools when they're running in them, you know? That's what they are, they're running shoes. They're not designed to be chopped in half and dissected like that. As such, I just wish they'd tell us a little bit more about the durability of the upper here in some of the shoes. I never seem to get any problems with them. They seem fine to me. I never get a hint of upper wear in practically anything, so there we go. Seems spot on to me, really, as a daily shoe. I'm not sure what else Puma can do to it to really make it that much better. There's quite a few discounts on this model right now as well, and a lot of people asking me about the dual density midsole here. Is it like the Pegasus Turbo? I wouldn't suggest it's similar, really. I mean, close, but the foams are very different really between those two shoes. Very little to dislike here in the Puma Velocity Nitro 2. I'm going to give this a strong B-. It's cheap and it's cheerful. Next up, an absolute banger from Puma, the Faster Nitro Elite. Someone said to me the other day that I should just pronounce it Faster Nitro Elite, but there's a like a gap between the two, so I'm not going to do that. This did not disappoint in the slightest. I was extremely excited to test this one out. Super flexible upper here, not at all artificial in terms of feel around the foot. Despite that sort of plasticky mesh, I really enjoyed the upper. Lockdown, easy to achieve, and you've got some quite coarse laces here. They don't really go anywhere once you've tied them up. I found this one superb at those slightly shorter distances, the 5k and the 10k. Certainly up to the half as well. I'm not sure I'd use this one for the full marathon, mainly due to that upper fit. Once again, it is almost triangular there in the toe box. It's a really aggressive shoe, this one. It reminds me a little bit of the Tempo Next Percent from Nike. It's that sort of feel. The more and more you put into it, the better and better it gets. It's like you want to run in an aggressive fashion, and the shoe really gives back. And it's a shoe that really stands out as well in terms of the design and the colorway. I just love it. Feels futuristic, like Puma are actually pushing the boundaries here rather than just copying everything else. I think the only area of the shoe that slightly disappointed me was the outsole. It is an absolute hoover here in the heel. I think it's due to the number of cutouts and the exposed midsole. I just got lots and lots of debris caught up here. In fact, there's loads in here now that I can see. It's very difficult to get out as well. I mean, it's a master of grip, but it really does collect that grit and debris. Maybe they'll toy with that in future iterations of the Fast R Nitro Elite. So this one gets a really good A- from me. Oh. It's got a bit of weight to this one. Another shoe that I tried out this year from Puma is the Magnify Nitro. A max cushioned model, this one. There's a whole bunch of foam there to facilitate those longer runs. Perhaps if you're bringing the speed down and doing some recovery stuff as well, the Nitro pillow here could really help out. Certainly a shoe that's got a plusher upper than pretty much all of its brothers and sisters, and a very thick tongue here to relieve some of the pressure from those laces. It does very much feel like Puma are refining their model very slightly over each iteration. Will be interesting to see what they do in the Magnify Nitro for next year. Just careful progression really with Puma. They don't just throw the kitchen sink at things. This shoe follows that same Puma combo method with the foam, where you've got EVA underneath and then the much softer Nitro material on top, but this time quite a bit more than you get in the Velocity Nitro 2. I'll be very honest, I wish I'd just got more miles into this shoe. It's kind of one of those that's been pushed down the pecking order through no fault of its own really. With the miles I have got into the shoe, they've been pretty much issue free really. I can only really comment on my testing so far. I'm going to give this one a B- overall. Again, you may ask, could I afford to go down half a size? I will leave you to decide upon that one. Perhaps they could reduce the weight down somewhat by getting rid of some of the materials in the heel or the tongue, but then again it wouldn't be the plush beast that it is right now. A quick inclusion at the very end of this video for you of the first mile version of the Puma Velocity Nitro 2. It's a special variation of the shoe which is made of more recycled materials, making it a sustainable option. The one I found to be a touch lighter and less present on foot compared to the original. It's got all the hallmarks of the Velocity Nitro 2, just with a little less weight, a little less thickness in the upper. Nothing though to present a major difference here between the two shoes, so I'll give that one a strong B-. Okay, that's all of the shoes from both Puma and Asics that I've reviewed over the last 12 months. Let me know what you think of my grades and what perhaps yours would be down in the comments. Looking forward to trying out lots more from these two brands over the next year. In fact, there might even be one coming in from one of these brands, or maybe both, very soon. Musical interlude time. Today it comes from the Eels, one of my favourite bands. I say bands, it's pretty much just E really on his own these days. This one's called Blinking Lights and Other Revelations from 2005. It means it's 17 years old. I can remember when this was released. That can't be right. On CD B, there's two tracks that are absolutely fantastic that you must check out. Hey Man, Now You're Really Living and Losing Streak really kind of epitomise this whole album. So many tracks. I mean, I think you've got about 16-17 tracks on each CD, and it's a double CD when people used to buy CDs. Ugly Love is a great track as well from the second disc. There's quite a DIY feeling about the whole album. It does feel like he's kind of put the majority of it together just in his basement or something. Maybe that's exactly what he did. A very underrated artist, E, that's actually produced loads and loads of albums. Dig into those, you'll find something that you like. Blinking Lights and Other Revelations from Eels. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. Hope you've had a great day as well if you're over in the US of A. Hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you.